Hi, everyone. Welcome to First and North. My name is Luke Canellis at Fox 32 in Chicago. Joining me this week on First and North. Let's bring up the crew. The voice of the Detroit Lions, Dan Miller from Fox Milwaukee. Tim Van Voorn, who follows the Packers. And from Fox Minneapolis, Pierre Nugent, who is all over the Minnesota Vikings. Let's take a look quickly at the NFC North standings after Week 5. Lions lead the way at 4-1 after winning their fourth consecutive game. A number of power rankings, by the way, have the Lions football's best team as well. Vikings return to the States after being in Ireland and London, 3-2 after their fourth quarter comeback in London. Bears and Packers enjoyed the bye week. Let's start with Dan Miller. Hey, Dan, the Lions never take a team for granted, thinking that they're just going to show up and win. I saw this stat the other day. I was amazed. Detroit beats the Bengals 37-24 on Sunday. The Lions have won 13 straight games against teams with losing records. How does Dan Campbell keep his team always motivated?
You know, it is kind of the secret sauce of what he does, and it's really been one of his strengths is just he knows where this team is emotionally. He knows where this team is mentally. He feels it, and then he gets them ready to play a game. And we've talked about this stat before, guys. They have not lost 2 games in a row since October 30th, 2022. There is not another team in the league that's even remotely close to that. And that is because when they're a little bit down, he figures a way to get them back up. They do not stay down. And here's the thing. If you look at the last couple of weeks against Cincinnati and against Cleveland, games in which they were heavily favored, they've been very patient, and they've said it's okay to punt. You know what? We're not going to try to force things on offense. Ultimately, they know if they don't make mistakes, which is what a lesser opponent is counting you to do to give them a chance, they're going to ultimately outlast those teams, and that's what they did in these 2 games. It hasn't been as if they've exploded right out of the gate, but they've figured it out. They've gotten a lead, built on the lead, and found a way to win both the games by sizable margins.
Impressive. All right, Pierre. When Christian Darrisaw took himself out of the game in the fourth quarter Sunday, I was watching the Vikings in London at Tottenham Stadium. He leaves the game. Vikings had only 1 starter playing on their offensive line. How in the world did they win that game over the Browns? And I'm talking about a real good Cleveland defense.
Yeah, they really managed the situation fairly well, didn't they, Lou? And, man, when you saw Christian Darrisaw come out of the game, because he was on a snap count as he continues to work his way back from the knee injury, but when Justin Skule moved from right tackle to left tackle and Walter Rouse was inserted at right tackle, I thought to myself, oh, boy, we better buckle up here because I don't know how this team is going to get through this, but they somehow managed to find a way to do it. And they did it by moving Carson Wentz around a little bit. You saw him bootlegging a lot, getting the ball out of his hands more quickly than we normally see. So they really wanted to play with a little bit more of a pace because they knew that front 4 of Cleveland, from Cleveland was going to be coming after them all game long. So kudos to Kevin O'Connell for finding a way to get it done with a patchwork offensive line because, like you said, Lou, by the time the game ended, they were without 4 regular starters on the offensive line. Blake Brandel making his first career start at center. Joe Huber making his first career start at left guard. But kudos to them. They somehow found a way to get it done, and they're coming home to the States with a 3-2 record.
I'll tell you what, Pierre, no one was more upset that they got it done more than Lou Canellis in Chicago, at least. Tim, was the bye week good for the Packers?
Sure, it was good for the Packers. They have done exactly what Dan Miller says good teams shouldn't do. They've let a lesser team just hang around, and then the better team makes a mistake. The Packers did that against Cleveland, lost the game, did that against Dallas, tied the game. And now, you guys, it's a first world sportscaster problem, I know, but for the rest of this season, for 3 more months, we have to say the Packers record is blank, blank, and 1. Come on, a tie. Come on, the whole rest of the season.
I'm with you. We talked about the tie last week. Hey, when the Bears schedule first came out, guys, few people raised their eyebrows because Ben Johnson in this town was excited about the early bye week. He really embraced it. And then he explained why. After 4 games, he and his coaches would have a chance to do a deep self-evaluation of where they were. What's working, what's not working. Remember, this is a learning experience, and it's not only for the players, but also for a brand new coaching staff as well. In addition, it gives the Bears a chance to get healthy. I'll talk about it later on in the show, but this was a team that was minus 5 starters, 4 on defense. Grady Jarrett, TJ Edwards, Kyler Gordon, Jalen Johnson, who's out most likely for the rest of the year. And we even forget about defensive end Austin Booker, who was arguably their best player in the preseason till he got hurt. Dan, I want to bring you back because going back to the Lions, David Montgomery with a massive game at his return home to Cincinnati. Here's Monty after the game and some high praise from head coach Dan Campbell as well.
It was super cool to come back home. Like I said, I haven't played here since I left high school, but being able to get in the box was super cool. So I'm just happy that we were able to win.
I think everybody roots for that guy because that guy will do anything for his teammates. Like, he lays it on the line on Sundays. He lays it on the line in practice. Like, you know what you're going to get out of David Montgomery. It's no different than Saint. You know what you're going to get every Sunday out of St. Brown. He's going to do whatever it takes. He'll stick his face up there in protection. He'll run the dirty runs. He'll run downfield to make a block for a teammate in the pass game. He's all team. Excuse my language. But so love the guy. We're fortunate to have him, and he's a stud.
Dan, I love the fact that we ran you doing the interview with Montgomery because it shows that you and he have a great relationship, and you and I have a great relationship, and we would appreciate number 5 back in a Bears uniform.
I'm afraid that's going to come between us, Lou. That's not going to happen. No, he's, look, we've talked about it before. They love him here, and you can hear Dan Campbell talking about it. He's a heartbeat guy for this team that other guys were so happy to see him not only score a touchdown on the ground, but to throw a touchdown pass as well in that game. And that was by design. They wanted to send him back home, and he talked about how important that was to him, and they made it a special homecoming for him. And look, he's a big part of what's going on with this team. It's not just, you know, ceremonial or anything like that. And you never know kind of how it's going to go between these two backs. It was Jahmyr Gibbs the week before, and it was Montgomery the week before that. So they just go with the hot hand. This week it was David Montgomery in his homecoming, but this is a run-first football team. As good as Jared Goff is, and he's been terrific, 83% of his passes and 3 touchdowns in this game last week, they want to run it first and set up that play-action pass. That's the offensive line, and that's those talented backs leading the way.
You know what? Before I move off of you and the Lions, I'm glad you brought up Gibbs because Montgomery and Gibbs also tied the record for the most games a running back duo has scored a touchdown in the same game. They tied the record with the guy who was actually calling the game on Sunday for you guys, Daryl Johnson, the former Dallas Cowboy. Can you just briefly talk about the relationship between Gibbs and Montgomery and how they love working together and no one feels like they have to have the upper hand on the other guy?
Yeah, it's really cool because Jahmyr obviously is the much younger player, and he looks up to David. David's a mentor to him. David's the kind of guy that sets the tone for a lot of young players on this team. They look at him and understand what it is to be a professional football player. So not only are they extremely talented, not only do they give defenses different looks because they have different styles, but they get along together. It's a great relationship. But that's just kind of the way David Montgomery is. He really lets everybody know what it takes to survive in this league, what it takes to thrive in this league, and it's been fun to watch them. Sonic and Knuckles is what they're known as here in Detroit, and those guys both are a big part of everything that happens with that offense.
Yeah, Montgomery is such a great mentor. Pierre, surprised when I saw that Jordan Addison didn't start that win over Cleveland. Head coach Kevin O'Connell explained his decision.
You know, we're always going to keep a lot of those details in-house, but I do think I want to share with you guys. He missed a walkthrough this week, and, you know, those types of things aren't in alignment with our standards, and, you know, wanted to make sure he was held accountable for that, but at the same time, he knows that. I thought he handled it professionally. He spoke with the team to let them know that whenever I gave him the opportunity to go in the game, they could count on him, and he makes the game-winning catch.
For him to come out with that going on and still being able to make plays out there and finishing the game with the touchdown to get us up, it was like it was meant to happen, you know. So he's a great player. He's a tremendous talent. You know, I just got to do better into, you know, keeping him under my wing and making sure that he has his head on straight.
Pierre, that's what it's all about, man. We just talked about David Montgomery being a great mentor. You love hearing that from your head coach and your best player, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly I can understand the fans' frustration with Jordan Addison at this point. But when you hear it from the head coach and your best player in Justin Jefferson in terms of how they view the situation, it starts to make you feel a little bit better because, listen, let's be honest, Jordan Addison has all the talent in the world, but some of the off-the-field issues that the Vikings have dealt while he has been here has been kind of head-scratching. The excessive speeding, driving under the influence. He just returned, Lou, to the lineup after serving a 3-game suspension to begin the season, and then you miss a walkthrough and you're forced to sit in the first quarter. Now, he did come back and make the play of the game at the end of the game, catching the game-winning touchdown pass, but it kind of leaves you scratching your head thinking to yourself, Jordan, you just came back from suspension. What are you doing? I mean, this is something that is certainly baffling for this team. And like I said, he's got all the talent in the world, but he has to understand that it's time to be a professional now. This is his 3rd season in the league, and his contract's going to be coming up at the end of this season in terms of possibly getting a bigger payday. And if Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah starts to point to the things off the field that might prevent him from committing to Jordan Addison, whether it's long-term or big dollars, I mean, Jordan Addison only has himself to blame in situations like that, but hopefully this is the last we hear of these type of issues with Jordan Addison because the Vikings certainly need him on the field.
Hey, quickly before I move on to Tim, if he makes another mistake off the football field, how much more will Kevin O'Connell stand for?
You have to imagine that this is probably one of the last few chances he's going to get. Now, I will say that if the punishment here for missing walkthrough was good enough for Kevin O'Connell and if it was good enough for the team, it's good enough for me. I have no problem with it. We can kind of wipe the slate clean, move forward with it. But you only get so many chances in this league, Lou. No matter how good you are, you only get so many chances in this league. And Jordan Addison's starting to run out of them. I can't imagine that the Vikings' patience is going to be running all that much longer with him if these things continue to pop up.
No question. And other guys in the locker room are watching to see what he gets away with and what he doesn't get away with. Tim, I know the Cowboys scored 40 against your Green Bay defense, but Dak Prescott, boy, he's looking like an MVP against almost everyone except for the Bears. I can't believe I'm even saying that. But when watching Prescott's success, is it easier to stomach what the Cowboys did against the Packers?
To a degree, he is having a pretty good start to the season. You do hear his name mentioned in MVP talk. He didn't have a great game, as you said, against the Bears, but he's been very productive against Green Bay, and, of course, the following Sunday after that. And, you know, without C.D. Lamb, I think you definitely do have to credit Dak Prescott. He got the ball out so quickly against Green Bay. I know that was a couple of weeks ago now, but so quickly. Packers had pressure. They had penetration across the line, and really it was Prescott who was beating that pressure. And so you do have to commend him, and really he's keeping the Cowboys afloat, I think, in many ways.
He's been great. All right, we need to take a timeout. We get the latest injury updates around the division. And how about J.J. McCarthy? Is he going to start after the bye week? All that and more when we come back here on First and North.
Number 1 Ohio State takes on Illinois. It's Big Noon Saturday on Fox.
We're back on First and North. Luke Canellis at our Fox 32 studios in Chicago. Dan Miller is at Fox in Detroit. Tim Van Voren, Fox Milwaukee, and Pierre Nugent, who follows the Vikings at Fox in Minneapolis. All right, Pierre, I'm going to start with you. Kevin O'Connell said yesterday that the bye week came at the perfect time so the team can get healthy. I assume you agree?
Yeah, there's no question about it. There's been a laundry list of injury issues with this football team, Lou, on both sides of the ball. Blake Cashman, Andrew Van Ginkel, Donovan Jackson, Ryan Kelly, their starting center, and, of course, J.J. McCarthy. Everybody is starting to wonder about whether or not he's going to be available to go when the Vikings return from the bye in Week 7 when they host the Philadelphia Eagles. But even though I think a lot of the players around the league like the bye week to be a little bit closer to the middle of the season, this bye week couldn't come fast enough for this group because they are hurting, really hurting on both sides of the ball, and this comes at a perfect time. Hopefully this team can get healthy as the Eagles come to town in a couple of weeks.
All right, I'll ask you about McCarthy in a little bit, but the other guys who are out, do you expect them to come back the week after this bye week?
The hope is that starting left guard Donovan Jackson is going to be able to play. The same with Andrew Van Ginkel. I think they just needed a couple of extra weeks to get right. I think they're hopeful on both of those players. As far as Blake Cashman goes, we're going to wait and see. You know, he's coming off IR. We'll see if he's going to be available to go because they certainly need him, especially in the run game. That run defense has been porous over the last few weeks. So they're hoping for Blake Cashman. I'm a little more optimistic with Donovan Jackson and Andrew Van Ginkel, though.
All right, Tim Van Voren. Is the offensive line the only part of this team holding the Packers back?
The offensive line has been very inconsistent so far, Lou, so that is the number one area of concern. You didn't mention special teams, though. My goodness, the Packers are not the only team in the league, but they have really struggled on special teams, had some catastrophic errors there, and they've had just big plays that have swung momentum in the two games they didn't win. So the special teams needs to be shored up coming off this bye the Packers have just had. The offensive line seems to be rounding into health, at least, as Aaron Banks is back at practice. Zach Tom is back at practice this week. And then the Packers think that they have a chance. They still like their defense, despite what happened against the Dallas Cowboys, to be able to outscore other teams and win football games.
Hey, Christian Watson back at practice, right? When do you think he may be back?
He's at the 21-day window now to be able to be activated for game action. Packers have really talked about Watson being ahead of schedule in his rehab from knee surgery all along. He got a contract extension even while he's been in this rehab, so that theoretically he wouldn't rush it to try to get back and put up some numbers for his next contract. A lot of people are very excited about Christian Watson's return, including Christian Watson. He's one of those caged animals. I want to get out there, I want to play kind of guy. And he would help the team on the field. They have talent in the perimeter areas, but they don't have somebody who can just get down the field the way Christian Watson can. So a lot of excitement about Watson being back on the practice field, and he's been around the team all season long. Now it's just a matter of when they actually pull the trigger and say, okay, you are ready to go in game action. I would anticipate it not this week against the Bengals, but they have two upcoming road games, Arizona and Pittsburgh, probably for one of those.
Interesting. Dan Campbell said Terry and Arnold going to be out for a while. To quote Campbell, he said a long time, and then today we learned the second opinion that Arnold received was much more positive, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you'd have asked me yesterday, I'd have told you he was going to be out and maybe till December, something like that. That's kind of the way it sounded. Not great for a team that's already lost their number one cornerback in DJ Reed. So the report today is that the second opinion is not as significant, and it appears he could be back later this month. So it's a shoulder injury for Terrion Arnold, and the hope is now that he will not miss a lot of time. Problem is, he will miss this week's game against Kansas City. We anticipate he'll probably miss the week after that against Tampa Bay. Bye follows that, so who knows, maybe 3 weeks from now, you might be talking about Terrion Arnold back in the lineup, and they could use it because they're down in some numbers right now at cornerback. The positive thing on the injury front for the Lions, Aleem McNeil could well be back this week against Kansas City. That is ahead of schedule. There was a possibility he could play this past week against Cincinnati. He did not. But that's going to be a big addition to that defensive line when they get number 54 back out there.
What about DJ Reed?
Reed, I think you're looking late in the season, probably around late November, December, something like that. Just reading the tea leaves. We do not have anything specific from the team in that regard. He is on injured reserve, which means at least 4 weeks. Week number one just passed, so he's got 3 more weeks before they could consider it. I think for DJ, you're looking second, third of the season, probably late November, early December before they could get him back. So not great at cornerback right now. You're hoping this isn't a precursor to what they saw last year, which was where the defense was completely wrecked by injuries. Right now, though, it is going to be quite the test going into Kansas City to play an angry Kansas City Chiefs team and Patrick Mahomes with cornerbacks that are missing your top two right now.
All right, thanks for the update on Reed. When Ben Johnson did a deep self-evaluation of the Bears, he said, oh, man, we need to run the football better. But he chose to point the finger at himself, not DeAndre Swift, the lead back. Swift's averaging only 3.3 yards per carry. That is not good enough. Johnson said that he has not put Swift in a position to succeed. Former Bear Tom Thayer, and Tommy played guard on the '85 Super Bowl team. I do a show with him on Sunday nights. He told me, hey, the familiarity of the offensive line playing together is a huge deal, and it's going to help the Bears' ground game as we move through the season. Remember that Jonah Jackson, Drew Dahlman, Also Joe Tooney. They're all new to this team up front. And then you add possibly a new left tackle. We'll learn this week about Theo Benedict maybe replacing Braxton Jones. And it's going to take a little time to build some chemistry to create those holes for Swift. And the other glaring issue for the Bears that they have to fix is their run defense. The return of tackle machine TJ Edwards and Kyler Gordon, the nickel back. That will help the run defense, but how much? I mean, man, they are allowing 6 yards a carry right now, and that is absurd. I heard a national media guy say, Pierre, that Justin Jefferson may have a say in the return of J.J. McCarthy if Jefferson feels like he has a better chance of getting the ball with Carson Wentz at quarterback. And then Wentz will keep starting if Justin Jefferson feels that that's the case. You buy that?
No, I'm not buying it whatsoever because Justin Jefferson has a great relationship with his coaching staff, and this coaching staff will make the final decisions. But one thing I will say, Lou, is at the risk of sounding like an uninformed sports reporter to our audience, one thing I will say is that we don't know who is going to be the starter in Week 7, and we don't know that at quarterback I'm talking about. We don't know that because when Kevin O'Connell was asked about it after the game, he would not commit to J.J. McCarthy being the starting quarterback. He did not answer the question directly. And guys, you've all been in the business long enough at this point now to know that sometimes the things you don't hear catch your ear a lot more than things you do hear. And when I did not hear that when J.J. McCarthy is healthy, he is our starter, that struck with me. Now, I know that you might not want to tip your hand to Philadelphia in a couple of weeks. I could certainly respect that. But Kevin O'Connell did not answer the question directly. Now, obviously, the Vikings have a long-term plan and a hopeful long-term solution at quarterback with J.J. McCarthy, and they want to get him back in there to see what they have in their investment. But I was struck by the fact that Kevin O'Connell did not say the words, when J.J. McCarthy is healthy, he is our starter. That stood out to me. Interesting. Tim, let me wrap up the segment with you. What's going on around the league? Guys dropping the ball right before they cross the end zone.
Yeah, how about that? And then they're in danger on their own sideline when the coaches come on over, right? So, you know, there has been undisciplined play this year, I think, in the first month of the NFL season. I don't know if you guys would agree. We've seen it with the teams we follow. We've seen it as you watch games around the league. And it stands out because the margin for error is so thin in so many of these games. Goofy plays, strange plays seem to have maybe an outsized effect.
Why do you think so much undisciplined play, Dan?
Special teams breakdowns, I think that's been the thing. I mean, we have seen a number of critical kicks that have been blocked, and it just doesn't make any sense. And I think you would think after a week of it, which we had 2 weeks ago, that you would see guys that say, you know what, I need to put it. Dan Campbell talked about it the other day. If that doesn't make you say, you know what, I got to lock in and block this like it's the last play I'm going to play, then I don't know what will. But I don't think it's that we're coming into some new age of teams knowing how to block kicks. I think it's a lack of concentration and a breakdown in the blocking units, and that can cost you a ball game, as we have seen with numerous teams so far this year. And the dropping the ball before the end zone, man, I don't know how you do that. I really don't. And how do you do it when you're the second guy to do it? You just saw it happen last week, and then it happens again to the Cardinals this week. I don't get it. And, you know, I don't condone the coach's reaction at all. That was beyond ridiculous. But, man, you got 2 more feet to celebrate. Hang on to the football.
I'm with you. All right, we need to take our final time out. We preview Week 6 around the division next here on First and North.
Football at noon. It's like clockwork. Shanghai, Rome, Paris, Lubbock. There is no time zone on Saturday. Look at these lunatics. These people need help.
All right, here are the matchups for Week 6 in the NFC North. Sunday, Packers return home to take on the Bengals. Lions head to Kansas City against the Chiefs. Sunday Night Football. Monday night, to wrap up Week 6, Bears head back to Washington against the Commanders. We all know what happened there last season if you're a Bears fan. Late this morning, Browns traded quarterback Joe Flacco to the quarterback-needy Bengals. Tim, is Flacco going to beat the Packers twice in 3 weeks?
Maybe the Packers couldn't beat Jared Goff. They couldn't beat Jaden Daniels. They beat those guys. They didn't lose to Dak Prescott. Now you get Joe Flacco lined up with the chance to get him again. Green Bay was going into this game thinking they were going to be easy winners. I still think they will be.
All right. Dan Campbell said all Kansas City does is, quote, freaking win. Dan Miller, how do you feel about Kansas City after watching them lose to Jacksonville?
I still think he's right. All they do is figure out a way to win. This will be a tough one for the Lions, especially with injuries in the secondary. It's one of the coolest stadiums to play in the NFL. So, you know what? Let's load up. Let's go play. It's going to be a lot of fun on a Sunday night. It's the only game going on.
All right, let's hope the Bears can succeed after the bye week, something that they have not been able to do with their last 5 coaches, going all the way back to Mark Trestman, John Fox, Matt Nagy, Matt Eberflus. Ben Johnson, please. That crew, that previous crew before Johnson, 2-10 after the bye week. Pierre, enjoy the bye week. I know you will, that's for sure, right?
I can't wait to sleep in. I'm so sick and tired of these 8:30 a.m. kickoffs. I can't wait to have a noon game again here in Minnesota.
Have a good time. All right, guys, have a great week. For Dan, Tim, and Pierre, I'm Luke Canellis. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week on First and North.